Part 1 of The Nuclear Deep End, an Apocalypse episode series. Part 2 is under construction. Like and subscribe so you don't miss it. Copyright Firefly 2023. Voiced with AI.
Chapter 1. Imagine that you wake up each and every day. You pull on your dress slacks or work pants depending on your social achievements in life, and head out to work with coffee and possibly a muffin in your hand. You start your car and battle crazy drivers to arrive at work alive. You work your day, doing several tasks that may range from imperative to the existence of human life, to meaningless tasks, then you go home. Your home filled with all your things, again both imperative and meaningless. Sounds like a normal day, right? Well, that was yesterday and this is today. Today is not normal. Furthermore, I am confident to say that all of the tomorrows will be as harshly abnormal as today. What would it feel like to know everyone hated you? Well, someone hates the East Coast of the good old USA. As for how it feels like an EMP. Yep, that's right, a good old electromagnetic pulse. I am going to keep track of my story here. I don't know if my story will ever make me famous, but maybe the world can be semi-normal for my grandchildren and they can help share my story. That is if I can make it to the rest of my life. I am currently bunkered down in my job. I'm not lucky enough to have a fancy office attire kind of job. It's more of an apron, hat, name tag and drive-through headset kind of deal. But hey, I'm a general manager, that's gotta count for something, right? Anyway, it's just me and a mix of day shift and the night crew. The EMP had to hit between 4:30 and 5 o'clock. Amanda made it to work, she was 4:30. Jason was 5 o'clock, he hasn't come in. I'm guessing he was on the highway. There are 7 people total, including myself. I only have 3 with me now. If you know anything about an EMP, you might be wondering to yourself why I have stayed. Here is the problem, there was also a few nuclear detonations after the EMP. I know this for 2 reasons. Firstly, we went outside after everything shut off. Just like that. It was like the fuse blew on the whole world at once. Out of nowhere the power just turned off. I immediately pulled out my phone since there wasn't a cloud in the sky. The screen did not light. The phone was dead. The battery couldn't have possibly died in a matter of hours. The phone itself must have. That was the first moment I had my suspicions to the causes of this problem. Alex called to me in a slow voice. Apparently, the car pulling off from the drive-thru was just dead. The rest of the drive-thru couldn't start or move either. Naturally, we all went outside. Mainly to stand scratching our heads at stalled cars. Unfortunately, we instead stood, mouths gaping, as twin mushroom clouds blossomed to the north. Secondly, I am a prepper. I am not the most experienced. However, today every prep mattered. I ran across the parking lot and threw open the hatch on my late 90s Grand Cherokee. I always travel with a small self-made Faraday cage and bug-out bag. Honestly, I must say it's good we got nuked, otherwise when they saw me pulling rolling luggage and backpack, they would have thought I was a nut. They still thought I was a nut on my second trip when I was toting a small metal box. Among a few other things, I had a hand crank radio. 12 hours later, when I dared open the box, it would confirm both EMP and nuclear strike in a 1-2 punch. I know it may seem like I travel with a bit much, and obviously I'm going to have to walk somewhere. I also know it will be awfully difficult with rolling luggage. This bag was a recent addition to my Jeep's supplies. I almost would have taken a bet with a heavy heart that this was going to happen. So basically, I needed this bag if I was going to be trapped and had to sit tight before I walked home. As soon as we seen the mushroom cloud, I told everyone who gathered staring with their mouths open in our gawking group what was happening. If it was not for the mushroom cloud, I don't think they would have listened. I summed up the information I knew in a few key points for them. If you can see the mushroom cloud, then you for sure can expect dangerous radiation and a boom within 30 minutes. If they could make it home in 15 to 20 minutes, they could go. If they couldn't, then they should come inside. I offered the stranded motorists a safe place to ride out the radiation. Almost no one took me up on my offer. I did purposefully withhold the whole, we should stay locked inside every single second for as close to 2 weeks as we could, whole thing. I did this because I think more people out of our little group would have tried to make it home, and would have died. I didn't spill the beans about this until we were taping up trash bags on the windows and trying to get as prepared as possible. They seemed a little pissed, probably rightfully so. But if they couldn't have made it home, it would have been an agonizing death. If they did make it home, it would have been an agonizing death in front of their loved ones. As soon as people came inside, I gave them tasks. The non-employees looked at me like I was crazy, but I just asked them if they would like to survive or not. Everyone quickly got to work, falling into the teams I had split my crew into. Luckily, we had an extra case of trash bags, and I had loads of cling wrap. We taped trash bags over the windows after cutting the seams out of them. This was more for the radiation than the mid-November chill. We then stacked everything that we wouldn't be eating around the windows. Booths, tables and chairs, piled barricaded style along the exterior walls. This barricade was used as a mold for as much cling wrap as we could wrap around it. Not exactly ideal, but if all we can do is the least we can do, then it's the least we can do. While the 4-man team finished the north wall barrier, a team of 2 cut seams and taped trash bags. They assembled the large squares in a sheet to be taped at the ceiling and floor, effectively creating another barrier, beyond the first. We ended up with enough to make the initial wall and 3 sectioned off areas. I know again this sounds like nothing. I was told once that radiation is like Wi-Fi. You need to think about the falling particles in the same way. The more stuff, not just space, between you and the particles, the better. This at least made me feel like I was doing something. You might be wondering if I was just barking out orders or if I was working as well, and I am happy to inform you that I was planning diligently with my half-hour lead time to the fallout. I had us box ourselves in the center of the restaurant. Conveniently, this was the kitchen and walk-in. I helped the preparation by shoving all the rags I could into the vents of the walk-in and pulling out the refrigerated food that didn't need heating and put it in the reach in refrigerators on the line. I got all the ice I could out manually from the ice machine and put it in the reach-in as well, hopeful to extend the life of the food. Luckily, the ice maker is in the back of the kitchen. After getting all the ice out of the machine, I used a ball of cling wrap to clog the drain and dispense slide. I also let the sink run with all the drains plugged. Water will be the true test of how long we can make it locked in here, and I am aiming to collect what may be the cleanest water I will ever see again, thanks to the fallout. As soon as the crew were done taping, they started moving the paper cups and to-go supplies into the ceiling by removing a tile and shoving the boxes up there. This went quickly since we didn't need to worry about unplugging the internet cables strung everywhere. Just as I was finishing filling the last container that I could find, a deep boom rumbled the building, the cement floor quivered under our feet and the air seemed to shift around us. Then I realized the kitchen air vents were not covered. We scrambled to tape off the forgotten ones in the kitchen. Once this final task was finished, the building had a need feeling in the atmosphere. I informed everyone we were about to find out just how well we did. I told them there would be a much larger boom, but I didn't know much more and that we should all get down. As if to emphasize my point, the building shook again. This time without a sound, aside a sharp protest from the metal frame. I couldn't hear any glass breaking that seemed to come from the building. We wedged cardboard up to the glass before adding the furniture, so worst case if the glass is broken it is held in place to allow as little of the particles in as possible. I could hear pandemonium from outside.
So, the problem is the particles?
A feminine voice interrupted the silence. It belonged to a woman who I didn't know. She was maybe mid-40s, shoulder-length brown hair. She had an all-business face, a high-achiever kind of outfit. You know the kind, matching skirt and blazer.
Yep.
I responded confidently.
Why aren't we in the walk-in? You said like Wi-Fi, as many barriers as possible?
She asked. The walk-in's refrigeration unit is on the roof. I explained, understanding since I had thought of this briefly as well.
Isn't your air system for the vents on the roof as well?
She pushed in a tone that made me want to tell her to go outside and check for me.
Yep.
I responded as heads turned in my direction.
So, what's the difference? Seems to me we would be safer in there.
She again challenged. I know her type all too well. I hate to make quick judgments about people. But I have been serving food to the general population for almost 15 years. She thinks her name brand heels and fancy house and car shows she knows better than most. Mentally I reel myself in. From now on, none of that matters. As much as I hate talking to people whose general tone is a condescending sneer, they deserve to know as much as possible about this new life. The easiest way to explain this is, the unit for the walk-in cools the unit directly. By this I mean it doesn't get blown all over the place like the normal central air system. It directly goes to one place. To be safe I have covered both, but I'm hopeful the bends in the air ducts will help restrict the particles. I tried to sum it up.
Makes sense?
Alex mumbled more to himself than addressing the group.
What about the food in there?
She asked. I took out what I could and put it in the kitchen fridges with us. I said, gesturing to the fridge.
If the particles are radioactive and it works like you said, like Wi-Fi, won't the food be affected?
She asked in a shit tone. If I'm being honest, she even went as far as to gesture air quotes around Wi-Fi. As far as I am aware, radiation only affects cells that are organic and alive. For instance, your coffee table itself will not harm you, but radioactive particles on top of it will. So growing vegetation or alive animals will digest the particles, often through water contaminated with the particles. Ingesting the particles is the main damage that can be done. If the cells are dead, you need not worry about them ingesting the particles. I tried to keep my voice free of annoyance.
So, you're telling me, if I eat an apple that was outside in this, and let's say it had a worm in it, I am more likely to get radiation from the worm than the apple?
Alex asked. Yeah, if the worm's cells were still in function and the apple cells were not. I responded.
And how do you know all of this? I should just trust my life in the hands of a fast food worker?
She sneered, obviously pissed at me for being the messenger about the way life works now. I know all of this because I pick up a book every once in a while. I like to learn, opposed to socializing. I shot back, rolling my eyes.
We would be outside if she didn't know what was going on, so shut up and listen to the lady.
The voice came from a man probably 20-ish. The stranger was sitting on the opposite side of the kitchen, his back leaning on the fridge behind him. He was attractive, both looking and speaking confidently. A pretty boy, for sure. His hair was styled, dreads most of the way down his back, a black button-down shirt and slip-resistance shoes. I would say a server probably on his way to or from work. He had a dark caramel complexion and dark eyes. Amanda keeps smiling at him. I guess young love even exists in the apocalypse.
Well, I didn't know we would be expected to stay in here for 2 weeks.
She snapped. So, this is the stick that is rammed up her ass, I thought to myself. Well, there is nothing I can do for her right now. We are all stuck here. I would like to keep everyone in all 2 weeks. But I also am a logical person and know this will never happen. 24 hours is the minimum, but I am hoping to keep everyone in for at least 48 hours. I know this seems so harsh, but as soon as we start clearing our way to the door for anyone to leave, it is risking exposure to the rest of the group. I do know the bulk of the radiation will fade away within the first 48 hours. We were far enough away, it will most likely be survivable soon.
If she would have told you how long you should stay, would you have come in?
The man across the kitchen joined in again.
I don't know, probably not.
She answered, glaring at me.
Then why didn't you go home?
He asked.
I wouldn't have made it.
She responded.
And you know that because the boom hit us in 27 minutes, just like she said. The whole radiation Wi-Fi thing, that makes sense too. Then knowing about the way radiation affects cells, I am going to listen to her. You do what you want, but stop whining.
He said in a flat tone.
Makes sense.
Alex nodded as he mumbled again from beside me. Honestly, I am worried that the kid is in shock at this point. I have never heard him have such few words in the 6 months I have known him. Heels just rolled her eyes and sat back. Good. It's going to be a long 2 weeks. Chapter 2. For a long time, there has been only silence in the group. Among our little group of 7, there is a range of expressions worn by busy minds. No doubt everyone is thinking about how they will get home, find their loved ones, or possibly wondering if all this is actually happening for real. I think sitting here over the last few hours in mostly silence has been sobering. It lends the time to let it actually sink in that this is real. I am keeping a close eye on everyone. I am armed, I always am. I saw Alex also make a break for his vehicle, same as I did, before coming inside. I don't think he is a prepper like me, but I know for his birthday his mom got him a handgun even though he is 19, and you can't legally own one until 21. Water will be our biggest concern. In a perfect world we would have 1 gallon of water per person, per day. Unfortunately, that would be close to 100 gallons for all of us for 2 weeks. We have more like 25 to 30 as a rough guess. 30 gallons of water divided by 14 days is 2.14 gallons a day. That's not even half of the water we need a day for 7 people. It's more like a quart of water a person a day instead of a gallon. I drew the eyes of the whole room as I stood and walked over to the back counter and got the cling wrap.
What are you up to?
Amanda asked. I am going to cover the water in the 3-compartment sink and all the pans and cups I filled. I explained.
I'll help you.
She said, jumping to her feet and making her way over to me. Amanda was a smaller girl. Just shy of 5 feet. She was probably 100 pounds soaking wet. But don't let that fool you, dynamite comes in small packages. She has long, thick, dark brown hair that falls most of the way down her back. She wears large frame glasses and one dangling earring in her left ear. She has an alternative look to her, like a smaller, younger version of myself. Here, hold this to the side, I said, offering her the loose end of the wrap. I held the box parallel to the sink and began to pull it to make one solid strip from end to end. We did this 3 times to cover the sink.
Now just the pans.
She stated more than asked. Yeah, I responded. We continued to work in silence. Being in the restaurant, I am used to people I don't know watching me work, but the eyes from the small group of 5 onlookers seemed extra heavy.
So, we're just going to sit here?
Mariah broke the silence.
Yeah, looks like it.
Troy answered.
I might lose my mind.
She sighed. Better than your life, I offered. I know that it's a little cryptic, but it's honest. I know she is probably suffering all kinds of withdrawals. I have seen her check her phone a few times, I guess out of habit at this point. All of the people who a few hours ago were on my payroll are only here in Virginia attending university for careers that no longer exist. Amanda, 20, is in school to be a therapist. Troy, also 20, wanted to be a dietitian. Mariah, 18, is an undecided freshman at the local university. After we covered everything, Amanda went back over and sat in the floor. I looked around the makeshift room. The shouts and screaming has long ended from outside, the tension clouded the air like ink. I knew we were all on pins and needles. There is no preparation for something like this. You can read all the articles telling you about massive death, but to hear it actually happening is something else altogether. My stomach is still sick from the idea of us all voting not to open the door for the people knocking and calling to us on the other side. I explained that they would, not most likely, but with 100% certainty would be covered in particles. Letting them in will certainly kill us all. This is compounded by knowing we will no doubt need to step over these bodies to start our lives in the new scorched hellscape. We need a plan before we open the doors and leave. I am guessing the most efficient would be organizing ourselves into 4 groups. Those who are needing to go in the 4 cardinal directions. I know Alex lives south in my direction. I think Amanda lives that way too. I need to open my Faraday cage and check the radio. I didn't see a mushroom cloud when I was getting my gear out of the Jeep. That means nothing though, that was forever ago. Who knows how many strikes have happened? I feel good about our chances of Richmond still standing, as we have not had many other booms come our way. There is the occasional sway of the building. If these are from nukes, they were way far in the distance. The thought that freaks me out is the possible damage to the actual shelves of the earth from so many forceful blows. We don't live in an earthquake zone, so we should be clear, I think. I look over to my group. They were talking among themselves. Sounded like introductions are being made as we close in on our first 24 hours. I walk over to the group in time to hear the start of Heels talking about herself.
I'm on my way back to New York. I was only this far down the East Coast to meet with a new advertising firm. I stay so busy, my fiancé, and I have not found the time to get married. Sometimes I think he is just dragging his feet.
She trailed off, obviously realizing the likelihood that there is no longer a New York City.
Do you think it would have been hit?
She started to ask.
Unfortunately.
The stranger responded confidently. Her face sobered. We all looked down. It was like we all took a moment to consider who we may have lost. The moment was broken by our stranger.
My name is Tony, and I am from here, basically. I have family and friends all over in most high-population cities between both coasts. So, I get it. I think there is a reason we have made it. Yes, there is massive loss. But if you sit in it too long, you will condition yourself not to respond.
He offered what I think were meant to be condolences.
What do you know about loss?
Heels questioned.
I spent 4 years in the Marines during this war and have seen whole commands buried. Also, my wife was in D.C.
He snarled out. Heels sat back against the counter again. Who's going in what direction? I ask. Thinking it's time, we start building a plan, just in case for whatever reason we need to leave sooner rather than later.
Why would you ask that?
Alex questioned. Well, Alex, I know you live south in my direction. I think we should walk together. I also think that if we all stay into groups until we need to split off, it would be safer. Who knows what the world is like? I pictured the same scorched hellscape from moments ago, as I replied.
I live north. I live north. I guess, I don't know if it is worth the walk. I wish there was a way to know where all got nuked.
This was possibly the most intelligent thought I have heard this woman vocalize. I can possibly help with that, I said, climbing to my feet. All eyes studied me as I walked across the small room. I stopped and knelt in front of my metal box. To be honest, I am surprised that no one has asked me about this yet. I opened it as I assumed the group is randomly guessing to themselves what I have in here. It's not too much to brag on, but it should work, I said, lifting a small crank or solar-powered emergency radio. I don't even know if there will be any channels on air, but it's worth a try. The military might still have enough function to provide basic information, I explained, trying not to get anyone's hopes up with news from the outside world.
Anything would be nice to hear. I can barely stand it in here. I would like to know what is going on out there. I can't even sleep,
Amanda said.
Why didn't you get that earlier?
Asked Mariah. Heels looked in my direction as Mariah's question was spoken. I could tell she was going to jump on the last word, so I beat her to the punch. The EMP could have caused a number of effects. We also don't know that there was only one, like a second wave. I wanted to be sure I gave as much time as I could to help protect the last line of information we have to the outside world, while we are in this store. I gestured around the room to emphasize my point.
She is correct and made a good call.
Tony defended, also sensing the coming irritation. Good. I hope he is headed south, though if I was smart, I would be headed in any other direction than Heels. To be honest, I want to get home to my pets. Beyond that, I need to go west. All in all, I have about 4 weeks of walking in my near future, and I would like to not start that path with Heels complaining in the background. Before anyone else could comment, I switched on the radio. For a fraction of a second, nothing happened. I thought my stomach was going to fall out of my butt. Then the power indicator light started to glow green and the battery lights all lit up, indicating a full battery. Good, so it does work, I thought to myself. Mentally, I patted myself on the back for successfully building the cage. I rolled the sound wheel with my index finger and audible static filled the air. Smiles lit expecting faces. The true miracle would be a voice coming through this thing. I moved my finger to the tuner wheel. I rolled the wheel slowly under my figure. The static faded in and out. I'm assuming that static was good. After a grueling 30 seconds, a new voice filled the room. All eyes snapped to the radio.
Los Angeles, California, and Houston, Texas. All of these 12 cities are considered a loss. You should not try to enter them. If you are in the surrounding areas and have been sheltered the entirety of the event, you should remain inside. If you are not experiencing symptoms of radiation poisoning, staying inside will save your life. If someone in your immediate vicinity is vomiting uncontrollably, they most likely have radiation poisoning. When they pass, you should not attempt removing the body from the building. Remain on the innermost point of the building you are in. We are asking your help in managing the food and water you have accessible to you. The government is assisting the public where they are able. We are only able to make direct outreach to 3% of the population of American citizens.
I started rolling the wheel again.
Wait! I was listening to that.
Heels frantically lunged herself forward. I think it was a pre-recorded announcement on a loop. It will be repeating itself for a while. We can always go back. I am looking for something that is giving out more information than telling us what we already know. I explained.
Yeah, we have 2 weeks to share the radio.
Alex offered. As if sent to shut up the group before the fireworks start, the static gave way again to another voice.
No power on the North American continent. Slowly, we are getting reports from our listeners via ham radio. I have received multiple reports claiming no power from Canada to Mexico. Could you imagine that? I hate to tell you folks this, but there isn't going to be power for a long time. We have reports indicating 12 different nuclear sites. Main targets seem to be military bases, a few nuclear silos in the Midwest. Bastard.
There was a long pause. No doubt it must be hard to describe this real-life apocalyptical Hollywood nightmare.
This will be with us for generations, ladies and gentlemen. I think it is safe to say we have all lost someone. There is nothing to do but survive. You have the time now to digest this. Because moving forward you will have to fight for every breath. I don't want to scare you, but someone needs to prepare.
The host of the show stated dryly. I slid the radio to the center of the circle.
Don't break it.
I joked. Honestly, I just wanted them to hear everything that is being said. They needed a crash course in survival. A massive course they are already living. I grabbed a few ketchup packs and a sub-roll from the bag. It has to be approaching the middle of the night. I know the extra carbs and sugars will help keep me warm as the temperature dips through the rest of the night. The radio settled back to the pre-recorded information.
We have no information as to the origins of this devastating blow to our nation. The first strikes were EMPs or electromagnetic pulses. 2 separate devices were blown high above the continent, permanently disabling most electronics. From cars to television, I am ashamed to say how hard we were hit.
I closed my eyes as someone started searching through the static again. Sounds like we are able to get 3 whole channels. Stretching, I lay down, bracing my head with my arm. I fall asleep listening to a stranger's deliver the worst news and stories arguably in the history of the world. Chapter 3. At the starting of day 5, I have begun to realize we have been through all of the bottles of water and juice boxes. We now only have water in the sinks and pans. At our current rate, we will be out of water by day 6. Either way, I am starting to think we will be leaving before that, due to lack of food. I'm thinking we need to talk about rationing. I know everyone has been being cautious, it just simply isn't enough. The real struggle is how to bring it up. I guess putting it to a vote would be the best. I looked around the room. I knew most of the group would probably agree. I didn't want to disrupt the silence. It had remained quiet in here since transmission on all the airways stopped yesterday afternoon. I almost wish I never would have brought out the radio. I know it's not the radio that is broken, that's the good news. The battery lights still light up. We all decided they had lost power in whatever generators were working. Like an answer to our long-pondered question, the ground rumbled under us. As the quivering subsided and began again rapidly, we all looked to each other. Sheer panic. I listened intently, but no sound came. I looked down at my watch I had gotten from my box and mentally took note of the time, 4:17 p.m. Like lightning, if the bombs were strong enough and close enough, we would feel the boom. I didn't know much about the ratio of minutes to miles, but it's something when you have nothing. It's okay, if we were close enough to die, we would have immediately. We are as safe as we can be inside and sectioned off. I told the group as they all looked at me. The truth is, I don't actually know what is the truth.
It could have been anything, right?
Offered Alex. I'm sure he was just trying to help. I get that. After a rug pull of reality, that is 5 whole days trapped in here. I think we all know anything is possible, and to expect the worst. Silence filled the room. During the first couple of days, I would have expected everyone to argue. After a sobering 5 days in the apocalypse, I think even the strongest of wills have been broken. A boom filled the air. I felt this one in my chest. The building groaned.
The sound and wind hit at the same time. I am assuming this was a missile, but not of the nuclear variety.
Tony suggested.
What makes you say that?
Asked Amanda.
If we were close enough for the sound and wind to hit us together, we would have been incinerated.
He said confidently.
Makes sense.
Alex said.
Here in Virginia, there are a lot of bases, probably what is being bombed. We are close to a few, not too close though. I do worry about this building, however. I'm not sure how much more it can take before it comes down.
He looked up at the broken ceiling tiles. I glanced up at the tiles. I think he is right. They do not look like they need much encouragement to come down at this point. Up until this point, I thought putting everything into the ceiling tiles to help block out radiation was a good idea. Now I'm reconsidering that. I agree with Tony, we are going to have to move. I guess the sooner the better. I wondered why the radio stopped. Perhaps they were bombed as well. The fact that we will walk into a world of nothing is scary. 5 days is too soon. But what could be done? I wonder if Richmond would have been hit this round. I also agree with Tony, these were secondary locations being hit. I'm sure they hit population centers again. A war tactic as old as war itself.
Why do you think they waited all this time to hit the military bases?
Alex asked.
I could think of a million reasons, of the most probable being either we attack them and hit them hard, or they plan to have boots on the ground here.
Tony looked down as he said it.
You don't actually think that is possible, do you?
Heels questioned.
Yeah, I do. And no, at this point I do not think we have anything for it.
He replied dryly.
You can't be serious.
Alex stammered.
What do you expect? I will be shocked if humanity isn't killed off. Have you ever heard the term nuclear winter? Well, let's just say this winter isn't going to end anytime soon. The sun will be unable to penetrate all the debris and foreign gases high in the atmosphere. Don't forget the high probability of acid rain.
Tony said, looking right at Alex. I don't want to leave, but to hear it put like that, I have better places I need to be. I am a member of a prepping community out in the mountains. I inherited it from my grandfather when he passed. It's a compound of old hippies and their preceding generations, if they didn't move off the land. I suppose most of them will be trying to make their way back, same as me. I think Tony is right, we are going to have to move. We need to fill all of the water bottles we can. I am headed to Richmond, then west. If anyone is headed in that direction, they are welcome to come with me. But I don't want to wait around to see how much this building could take. Also, if enemy soldiers were coming ashore, I would like to be as far from the shore as possible. I said, climbing to my feet.
I wish the radio would talk again.
Heels complained. I know I shouldn't be so hard on her. I'm sure she is handling this the best way that she knows how. I don't know what more I could possibly teach them. Tony and I have spent days telling them everything we knew. We have established groups. Troy, Amanda and Mariah all are heading west then north. I guess they are hopeful to get around the radiation from DC. I have tried to explain to them it isn't like you can see the radiation, it can kill you before you realize you are in it. But they have decided this is the way they must go. That leaves me, Alex, Tony and Heels in a group. I don't know how far they have planned to go. I have kept my second location a secret, and simply said that I thought the mountains might be safer. The honest truth is, I'm not in that close with the other members of the compound. I know we all have been storing resources there. There is also the chance that the compound is no longer there. I have filled all the water bottles from the remaining water, now to split up the bread.
How are we going to carry our water?
Amanda asked. Do we have any of the plastic bags in here? I asked her. All the former fast food employees spread out and started looking through days of garbage. I don't know what to tell them if we can't find something. I only have one backpack, and it's mine. It's hard to keep things when you know others will need it. But at the end of the day, I was thoughtful enough to be ready. I should benefit from my own forethought. I can't set myself back by handing out such valuable commodities.
Found some,
Mariah called. Thank God, I thought. I walked over and gave them their 20-bottle split. We have 25, but another person in the group. While everyone was busy collecting the junk they have been using to keep themselves amused, I slipped a few power protein bars in the other group's second bag. I kept the most, but it would give them something other than bread. I tossed their half of the bread into the second bag as well. Anyone have a map? I asked the group in general. The realization of the technology takeover hit them as they all shook their heads. I looked through my bag and found one of the 3 I keep with me. The old saying my grandfather used to say to me, 2 is 1, 1 is none, and 3 is prepared. The one I selected is the East Coast as a whole. I pulled out a pen and put a large circle around the cities we knew for sure were hit. I tried my best to include the whole area I think will be affected from the blast. I marked out D.C., Atlanta, Georgia, Alexandria, Virginia, Norfolk, Virginia, New York City and New Jersey. I think I included enough room to cover the radioactive wasteland around each blast, but I would keep a wide berth just to be safe. I said as I handed Amanda a map and compass. I almost didn't want to let go. I felt like I had some responsibilities to these kids. I know they are not exactly kids, but 1 year at university doesn't make you an adult. I tried to tell myself I have done everything I can for them. I felt sick knowing I would most likely never see them again, nor would I ever find out if they made it to their destinations. I glanced over at my bag. I have 2 more handguns in it. I should give one to Amanda. Mariah and her are only going a few towns from each other. Who knows what kind of crazy is out there? But first I have to figure out how to get it out without the whole group seeing. You know the whole rule about bringing gum for the whole class, or keep it to yourself. We should find the rest of that tape and the gloves. I suggested. Tony glanced at the plastic bags.
I get where you were going with this.
Alex, did we have any trash bags left in the bathroom? I asked, turning to him. Luckily, the employee bathroom was just off the kitchen. The smell has long seeped into the kitchen from lack of ability to flush the toilet. He returned with a handful. We all took turns taping each other into what might be the most ineffective radioactive suits. We defiantly didn't look the part of doomsday preppers, but crazy people on a mission? I think we could win that award. As if reading my mind, Amanda asked. I asked, turning to him. Luckily, the employee bathroom was just off the kitchen. The smell has long seeped into the kitchen from lack of ability to flush the toilet. He returned with a handful. We all took turns taping each other into what might be the most ineffective radioactive suits. We certainly didn't look the part of doomsday preppers, but crazy people on a mission? I think we could win that award. As if reading my mind, Amanda asked.
Will this even work?
Honestly, I don't know, but something is better than nothing. I guess at some point they will get ripped, or we will have to take them off to use the bathroom. But keeping them on as far out of the radiation as possible is our best bet. I offered.
I'm going to miss y'all.
Amanda choked out. I know how you feel. I told her.
Yeah, we are like a family.
Alex said as Mariah nodded. We all stood there an extra moment just looking at each other's faces. I walked over to my bag, knelt and pulled out the 2 packs of bandanas. As I distributed one to everyone I thought, so much for daily changes. I only have 3 left to get home. Hopefully we can walk at a pace of 10 miles a day. I know I could when things were normal. But who knows what is out there? I turned slowly and rolled a flashlight and headlamp toward the northwest group. I then rolled a water straw to them. I zipped the bag, allowing me time to discreetly tuck the second gun in the front waistband of my pants. I swung my backpack on as I walked over to my metal box, only to drop the bag and kneel again. I needed to make a little room anyhow. Now I felt better about not having things I might need. I lifted out my GPS, 3 sets of NVGs or night vision goggles, along with 5 walkie-talkies and 5 earpieces. I took out the remaining hand crank chargers as well. I broke the silence. I am proud to say I am my grandfather's reincarnation. Not only am I a prepper, but a tinkerer as well. I have switched the charging port over in the walkie-talkies to a basic USB connection. The downside is you still need the same amount of power to charge them. You can hand crank and charge them if you plug them into this power supply. Mind you, they take about 4 hours of cranking for half of the battery life. You can crank to charge and crank while you are using it, but it will not replace as much as they are using when on. I explained. I walked over to Amanda and clipped a walkie-talkie to her belt. I stood behind her in what had to look a little creepy, tucking a gun into her back waistband. I walked in front of her and whispered.
The safety is on. Turn it off with a flick of your thumb on the left, pull the hammer back, have both hands on the grip when aiming. You aim center mass, breathe in, and squeeze. If you cannot aim your gun before one is aimed at you, do not pull yours. It is still a surprise until it is found. If you think you have to shoot, shoot. Never tell anyone you have that. People are not your friends. They only mean to take everything you have.
As I whispered, my hands were on her shoulders, locking eyes with her. I know Mariah was in earshot, but the rest were still checking out the walkies. I turned my attention to the group. You two stay close to one another. I wrote the channel you can find me on for the first day or so on the inside of the battery pack. They will only reach 5 miles or less. Don't drink or eat from anything that is unsealed. Don't drink from water sources like streams. Keep everything in a sealed package you can. Clean everything before opening. Think of your hands dipped in egg yolk. Everything you touch will be radioactive. The worst you can do is ingest it. As I finished, Tony walked up to Mariah and held out a knife. I nodded a thank you at him.
Anything you would like to share with the group?
Tony put an elegant twist on it. Probably a smart idea to remind everyone about the bodies before they are shocked by them. Now I didn't have to be the harbinger of the news. Or more likely, I wouldn't have said anything and reality would have had another rug pull. The school of hard knocks teaches the quickest. We are literally about to drown in the deep end.
Thank you for listening. This has been part 1 of The Nuclear Deep End, an EMP Apocalypse episode series. Part 2 is under construction. Like and subscribe so you don't miss it. Copyright, Firefly, 2023.